A very good morning to you all and welcome back. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. The EU's 18th sanction package against Russia has finally received buy-in from 27 member states to be implemented. Energy is a key part of the package with a dynamic oil price cap mechanism aimed at draining the Kremlin's energy revenue. We are now joined live by our EU correspondent Angela Skujins from Brussels. Good morning, Angela. So what can you tell us about this new suite of measures and how is it going to go over the line?
Yes, so this announcement came right up to the wire. We heard from our sources yesterday in the Belgian capital that there was no way the 18th sanctions package would be debated or at least approved on Friday. Then Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico announced late Thursday evening on Facebook that he would drop his veto against the 18th sanctions package, something that he used a whopping 6 times. He claims that he received the necessary guarantees from the European Commission on energy to approve this matter. Now, energy, as you said, is a key part of this sanctions package with that dynamic oil price cap mechanism, a key pillar, also one of the most controversial. Malta previously blocked the sanctions package over this, but what we're hearing from our sources that instead of that oil price cap dropping from $60 US per barrel to 45, it will be adjusted every 6 months to be revised down at least 15% of the market value. So roughly, according to our calculations, this would be $46.7 per barrel and be revised at the end of the year. A ban on those Nord Stream pipelines, as well as other energy factors, are a key part of this. TVP World did ask Poland's EU Affairs Minister Adam Szłapka about the efficacy of the oil price cap revision, in particular without the buy-in from Washington, as we have not heard anything from the Oval Office just yet regarding whether US President Donald Trump will implement this oil price cap revision on his side at the Atlantic. Szłapka did say that even without the US, it will be effective and it will hit the Kremlin where it hurts for that country's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. However, although that political agreement has been reached, it needs the formal approval from those EU affairs ministers. They're set to debate it any minute now. We will get an announcement at roughly 1 o'clock at that press conference regarding the specific details of this agreement. And although this is a major win for both Ukraine and the EU, it does raise serious questions about the negotiating efforts, Slovakia getting clearly what it wants regarding those guarantees from the European Commission regarding energy to get this proposal over the line. But that's all from me in Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
Thank you so much. That was Angela Skujins reporting live from Brussels. And let's continue on the breaking news of the approval of the 18th package of sanctions on Russia by the European Union. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas announced the measures, saying that they will further slash Moscow's war budget and are the strongest package of sanctions on Russia to date. Here's more.
We are standing firm. The EU just approved one of its strongest sanctions package against Russia to date. We are cutting the Kremlin's war budget further, going after 105 more Shadow Fleet ships, the enablers, and limiting Russian banks' access to funding. Nord Stream pipelines will be banned. A lower oil price cap. We are putting more pressure on Russia's military industry, Chinese banks that enable sanctions evasion, and blocking tech exports using drones. For the first time, we are designating a flag registry and the biggest Rosneft refinery in India. Our sanctions also hit those indoctrinating Ukrainian children. We will keep raising the costs, so stopping the aggression becomes the only path forward for Moscow.
We have a choice. Either finance them using EU funds, which at the end of the day are funds belonging to EU taxpayers, or finance them using the aggressor's money. And please don't ask me which option I prefer, said Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski in an interview for TVP Info regarding the use of frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine's defense capabilities. The statement came in response to US President Donald Trump recently saying he would be willing to send more weapons to Ukraine if Europe pays for them.
If the US doesn't approve a new military aid package, then with time, the weapons produced for Ukraine under the Biden administration will run out. Then it becomes a European decision. And we have a choice. Either finance them using EU funds, which at the end of the day are funds belonging to EU taxpayers, or finance them using the aggressor's money. And please, don't ask me which option I prefer. These funds were frozen in Belgium, and Belgium says, to no one's surprise, that it can't be left alone with the potential legal consequences. Belgium asks that this decision becomes an EU decision, so that the whole of the EU takes responsibility for it, in solidarity. And it's right. However, there are still member states that have reservations. The closer we are to the end of the year, when we have to allocate additional funds to uphold the statehood of Ukraine and its defensive capabilities, the more important that argument becomes. The US took part in a consortium that paid Ukraine an advance on interest from those frozen assets. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. However, in my opinion, the assets themselves should be used. Pay off the loan and use the rest to finance Ukraine.
Russian forces launched a series of deadly attacks across Ukraine on Friday, resulting in at least 7 deaths and leaving 25 people injured, according to local authorities. In Kharkiv region, a strike on the city of Chukuiv left 4 people wounded when Russian forces targeted the residential area. In Dnipropetrovsk region, a drone attack on the Pavlohrad district killed a train driver and injured 2 others, according to local authorities. Meanwhile, in Zaporizhia region, Russian forces launched 9 Shahed drones, injuring 1 person in the regional center. In Kherson region, drone and artillery attacks targeted dozens of settlements, killing 1 person and injuring 9, including in Kherson itself. Amid these ongoing assaults, U.S. President Donald Trump's ultimatum to Russia: agree to a peace deal in Ukraine within 50 days or face severe sanctions on energy exports, experts say has given the Kremlin a window of time to escalate its summer offensive, further complicating efforts for a diplomatic resolution. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has strongly condemned Hungary's decision to ban 3 Ukrainian military officials from entering its territory, calling it unfounded and absurd.
In a social media post on July 17th, Sybiha expressed Ukraine's rejection of Hungary's actions, stating, "We will not tolerate such disrespect for our military," adding that Ukraine reserves the right to respond appropriately. This comes after Hungary banned 3 Ukrainian military officials from entering the country, which is reportedly linked to the death of a Hungarian citizen in Ukraine's Carpathia region, which borders the country. Hungarian authorities claim that the deceased's death was connected to the officials' role in the country's military mobilization efforts. While Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government continues to resist Ukraine's EU accession, public sentiment appears more supportive, with recent polling showing that 58% of Hungarians back Ukraine's bid to join the European Union.
The British government has confirmed that plans for a multinational force in Ukraine are progressing, with the UK and France leading the establishment of command structures. The initiative is part of the UK's continued support for Ukraine's defense efforts, including a steady stream of substantial military aid.
On Thursday, UK Defence Minister John Healey revealed that the first phase of planning for the multinational force in Ukraine has been completed, with over 200 military planners from 30 countries involved in the efforts. The international force will focus on supporting Ukraine's security after a potential ceasefire, with plans in place for modernizing Ukraine's land forces, enhancing air patrols and ensuring security in the Black Sea region. This announcement comes as Russian forces have continued their offensive, seizing over 550 square kilometers of Ukraine territory in June. The UK has pledged over £4.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine this year, with a continued focus on strengthening the country's defense capabilities and supporting the cooperation with Ukraine's NATO allies.
The UK and Germany have signed their first bilateral treaty since World War II, emphasizing the need for closer cooperation on issues like defense, migration and trade. Speaking with TVP World, Daniela Schwarze from the Bertelsmann Stiftung discussed the UK's renewed interest in rebuilding ties with the EU after Brexit.
The UK seems to be reconsidering its relationship with the European Union and its most important member states. Because the geopolitical situation on our continent has changed with Russia's war on Ukraine and the new security concerns. And so we have seen a number of bilateral initiatives by the UK government with partners in EU member states, but also the first UK-EU summit, which took place in May, which also, kind of was the kickoff for more in-depth discussions on the future relationship of the United Kingdom with the European Union as a whole. And now for the treaty between Berlin and London, I think there are several notable points. One is indeed in terms of defense cooperation, pretty concrete industrial projects on missiles, on armored vehicles, and other elements where clearly an industrial interest is visible to cooperate, also to agree on export rules where Germany is more restrictive than other countries. And so here we see a step forward.
With war raging just outside the borders of Poland, a neighbor of both Russia and Ukraine, the state of the country's military preparedness has become a focal point of national debate. A recent survey conducted by Ibris for the daily Rzeczpospolita reveals a surprising shift in public opinion, showing a decline in confidence regarding the country's defense readiness.
According to the latest poll, 44.1% of Poles believe that the Polish army is ready to defend the country in the event of Russian aggression, but almost as many, 43.7%, disagree. These results show a significant drop in optimism over the last several months, with confidence in the army's readiness falling by more than 10 percentage points since autumn 2024. This poll shows more optimism in Generation Z respondents, as well as older people in their 50s, while those in the 30s are notably more pessimistic. Despite the government's push to ramp up defense spending to 5% of GDP, questions remain about the effectiveness of Poland's military preparations.
7 migrants were stopped overnight while trying to illegally cross into Poland from Lithuania. Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak shared the news on social media, adding that the group will be handed over to Lithuanian authorities.
Intensive night operations by our border guard and territorial defense forces at the Polish-Lithuanian border. At 1:20 a.m., 7 migrants attempting to illegally cross the border were apprehended. They'll be handed over to the Lithuanian side. A smuggler waiting for the migrants, a Latvian citizen, was also detained. No crossing allowed.
Diplomats from Germany, France, the United Kingdom and the European Union have delivered a stern message to Iran, warning that they are ready to reinstate international sanctions if no progress is made on the nuclear deal by the end of summer. On Thursday, European foreign ministers expressed their determination to act, telling Iran's foreign minister that they would resort to the snapback mechanism, reimposing all international sanctions if concrete progress on nuclear talks is not made by the end of the summer. According to the French Foreign Ministry, this marks the first diplomatic communication since Israeli and U.S. airstrikes targeted elements of Iran's nuclear program in June, an escalation that has further complicated ongoing negotiations. The 2015 nuclear agreement, signed by Germany, France, the UK and others, aimed to limit Iran's nuclear development in exchange for sanctions relief. However, following the U.S. withdrawal in 2018, Iran began violating key provisions of the deal, including uranium enrichment limits. A major data breach involving British special forces and intelligence agents has come to light following the partial lifting of a court injunction. The breach also exposed thousands of Afghans who worked with the British military during the 20-year war in Afghanistan. The identities of over 100 British officials, including members of the SAS and MI6, have been exposed in a serious data breach linked to the Afghan relocation program. The leak, originally discovered in 2023 but kept secret under a court order, not only compromised British officials to foreign governments like Russia or Iran, but put at serious risk nearly 19,000 Afghans who supported British forces during the war. Many now face increased threats from the Taliban. The breach originated from a UK Special Forces office in London and ranks among the worst security breaches in modern British history. The UK has since created a classified resettlement program, which has relocated over 4,500 people thus far and cost over £2 billion and counting. And so this would be all the latest news for now. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Please be back soon here on TVP World. We're coming back with more news and features, and we'll see you there.